Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, today I want to talk about another aspect or element of what it takes to be a good leader. And it's based on a quote that I've loved for many, many years. I heard it for the first time when I was still a teenager. And the quote is by Harry Truman, our former president. And the quote is, "It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit." And the first time I heard that, it rang true, but the environment I was in was a little bit cutthroat at the time. And it was an environment where if you didn't make sure that you got credit for the things that you did, no one else was going to do it for you. So you had to do it or it wasn't going to get done. And what I found is that that's not a recipe for success as a leader. It may be a recipe for success as an employee of a leader who is not good at assigning credit where credit is due, where you have to kind of fight for whatever you can. But in the construct of what it takes to be a good leader, it makes perfect sense. You have to not care who gets credit for the work that you do. And I'm wondering if you have any experience with this, because we've all had leaders that we've worked for that are probably really good at doling out the credit, even when it's not deserved. I've had leaders that were so good that they actually gave away credit they actually deserved. They should have been able to take credit for it, and they didn't. And then I've had leaders who took credit for things that they had no role in at all. So it runs the gamut there. What have you seen in your career?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with, as a younger employee or somebody new to a career, new to a business, new to a team, a lot of times the thing that allows you to have growth and move forward and get promotions is your ability to get the job done as an individual contributor. So there is a very important thing around making sure that you actually get the credit for the job that you're doing, and whether that's measured in metrics or business or behaviors or feedback, from customers, from peers, whatever that is, it's imperative that people understand that you bring and you add value. And so there is this element of, you have to take credit in some ways. Now, some people, they take too much credit and it comes across as maybe, ego or whatever. But there are a lot of things that you have to get comfortable with taking credit for to be able to get the opportunities. Now, I think the second piece of that is specifically when it comes to leaders, right? If you are the leader of a team, then really, their success is your success. And I think that, as a leader, it's important to understand that when your team is successful and you are the leader who is empowering them and creating the culture that allows them to have success, then the way that normally works is that you actually get the credit because your direct boss or your boss's boss or the company as a whole will look at the result of your team and automatically tie it to you. Unless, of course, your team hates you as a leader and all the feedback they give is that you're a bad leader.
That's probably the rarity, the case where a team can't stand their leader but still performs really, really well.
Sure.
I'm sure it happens, but the majority of the time, if you hate the person running the team, you're not going to be inclined to have the top productivity and engagement and get the best results. And that's usually how it works. You have to have good leadership in order to have a team of people who want to perform for you.
Sure.
But I think the first half of what you said is really right on, because a lot of leaders have a hard time remembering that. A lot of leaders have a hard time remembering that their job is no longer what it was when they were doing the job of the people they're now leading. So if I have 10 things on my to-do list as an employee, and now I've been promoted to the leader of a team of people who are doing what I used to do, my job is no longer to do what they do. It's to lead that team, obviously. But it's incredible how many leaders out there will try to insert themselves into a role where they can take credit for the things they used to do. Like you don't go down a level to do work that you used to do and then say, look how good I am. If your role has changed from one of executing whatever the initiative is for the customer or the client, and now you're leading people, your job description is the leadership of that team. It's no longer what that team is doing. And so I think a lot of leaders shoot themselves in the foot trying to take credit for those things. But I think it stems from this kind of belief that they can't quantify the result of leadership. They can quantify the results they see on a scorecard or on paper or an initiative that worked well or customer or client feedback that went really, really well. And if those were directed towards one of their people, then they can jump in and they try to take credit for it. And it's like, well, that's not what you did. That's what they did. But that doesn't mean you didn't do anything. It means that your successes just are defined differently now. Why do you think so many leaders have a hard time remembering that just because they weren't nitty gritty involved in something, it doesn't mean that they aren't a good leader?
Yeah, as you were talking through that, I was thinking about, in my own case, how do I navigate the waters of making sure that, in my tenure, that my direct boss is aware of the fact that I'm doing my job, but at the same time, that I'm not, overstepping and taking credit for the work of my people. And I think that as I was thinking about it, the way that I approach this is making sure that I have constant communication with my direct leader, and we discuss things like, how and where I'm spending my time, with who those people are, some of the things that I'm seeing from them, the work that they're doing, and the growth that I'm seeing, with them as leaders or as individuals on the team, and we're constantly having communication about the work that I'm doing. But when my leaders are, with my team, their entire time spent is me introducing them to the people that are actually doing the work and saying, as an example, hey, like I want you to talk to Chris. Chris, come on over here. Chris has been leading the team in this. He's taken initiative on this initiative, and he is, driving this behavior amongst the team. Chris here has been a mentor, amongst his peers. Chris here is leading in performance in these certain things, and I would love for him to share with you some of the work that he's doing, and then pass off that conversation. So it because the reality is that the individuals of the team are truly the ones that are carrying the weight of getting the results. Because as the leader, as you just mentioned, like, you can't go and do all of that work at that level at all. It's impossible. So like it's ridiculous to me to think that a leader's going to take all the credit for the work when you've probably done none of it. From a specific standpoint, you've done all of it in the right place when you're a leader who creates the environment and the culture that allows your people to do great work. But I think that you have to spend your time connecting with your direct leader and making sure that you can verbally quantify how and where you spend your time and the work that you're doing, so that when they walk in, it's not about assigning, the credit to who should get it. It's more about already knowing that you've done your job and now wanting to talk to your people about the great work that they're doing.
Giving credit to the people who deserve it comes off more genuine if it's in the context of, look at the work that's being done, not, this is Lorenzo, he did a great job on this. It's not that. This is Lorenzo. What he's taken initiative of is getting this and this and this and this and this done. And it's tying it back to the actual work, not assigning a subjective result to it. Oh, he did a great job. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess that's better than nothing, but the real work of giving credit is to say, this is what my employees are doing and how they are helping the business, and then allowing them to speak to it on their own. And what I think a lot of leaders don't understand is the process of doing that. The example you gave, where you bring your boss over and you introduce your boss to the people who report to you, and you say, this is what they're working on. That is leadership. Like, right there, what you're doing is, in a roundabout way, you're calling attention to how well you're doing your job, because your job is to make sure that your team is executing these objectives. And if you can speak to how each one of them is executing on those objectives, and that you know each one of them, you can speak to every member of your team, what they're working on, what their successes are. You don't need to speak to their failures. That's between you and them. But the successes get passed on to your boss, and the fact that you can speak to them well in a manner that implies this wasn't something you pulled out, note cards and studied the night before this formal walk, but it's something that's part of your everyday rhythm, is just knowing what everybody's working on and what they're working towards and what they're executing on. The fact that you can speak to that for every person to your boss, that is leadership. And that is your job. And that's what you deserve the credit for. And by doing it, you will get that credit from your boss if they are a good boss.
And I'll tell you, it is difficult based on your team size. Once we've talked about team size before, but once you get over about 20 people,
You mean 20 direct reports?
Yeah, 20 direct reports,
That's rough.
Or let's say maybe you've got 5 or 6 direct reports, but then you have a larger team of 20, 25, or 30 more people,
Sure,
right?
right.
Where your team is very big, and what's difficult is, and I can speak from this for myself, that there are many team members that do great work. You see them do great work. They're in positions and roles where your interactions with them as a leader are more frequent due to, like I said, the role that they're in or the part that they play in the larger ecosystem of a team.
Maybe even assignments they're stepping up and doing that take them out of their normal role and make them more likely to interact with you.
Right. There are those people that get a lot of attention and a lot of time because of the fact that they are doing great work and pushing the team forward. But I'll tell you, it's difficult because I know for a fact that there are people that are doing really, really good work on the day-to-day job in handling what they're supposed to handle. And because of whatever the circumstances is, whether it's when they work, or the fact that they kind of do it quietly, or the fact that they're not looking for accolades, or they don't have like ginormous career aspirations to say, like, constantly knocking on the door of what do I got to do to get better, or what do I do to go, to get to the next step, that they're doing great work as well. And they can be missed very, very easily. So I share that because a part of that leadership is actually utilizing your leaders to inform you of that work. So as an example, I'm known to have my leaders on a daily basis, document notes of people that are doing great work throughout the day. And maybe it was for an hour or two at the day, or maybe it was this specific assignment, or maybe it was this specific metric or result. But I asked them to document those things and share them out collectively across the leadership team so that we are all aware of these individuals that are making a positive impact. But more importantly, that since I can't be there all the time, or I have other responsibilities to do, my leadership team is letting me know that this work is being done, and then I can go catch that person. So if Chris, you and I hardly ever see each other due to circumstances, but I catch a note from 2 days ago that said, Chris did an amazing job with his client, with his customer. They were blown away. They loved him. They thought he was great, and they walked away. And I can read that from a leader that was there with you at that time, and I can follow up with you 2 days later and say, hey, Chris, just want to give you a heads up. I heard what you did the other night. So-and-so told me. Fantastic work. Thank you so much. That little bit right there, even if it's not introducing that person to maybe my direct boss or my boss's boss, that ability to have that type of connection is super, super helpful in building the right culture.
Well, I'll tell you what else it does too. It just strengthened the relationship between the leader who gave you the note and the employee the note was about.
Absolutely.
Because that leader that employee now knows that when they're working with that leader is not going to take credit for the things they're doing. They're going to pass along the credit.
100%.
And that's so good. Like that's part of your job as a leader, is to help strengthen the relationships between your people. And that effort, speaking to an employee who's 2 levels below you, will help strengthen the relationship between that employee and your direct report. But I have a question for you, because this is something that becomes kind of a dance. On the one hand, you have 5 or 6 direct reports, and then you have dozens of people in the larger ecosystem. There's got to be there's a fine line between making sure that you are giving credit where credit is due, but the credit could also be given to your direct report leader who has kind of fostered the environment to happen. So on the one hand, if something's getting done well, it could be kind of the knee-jerk reaction to go to the employee, the end user employee who's implementing it and doing it right, and give them the credit. But in the same token, you could be shortchanging that leader who's one step below you, who really was spearheading the effort. So it's kind of more like their job to call out the end user employee and your job to call out the leader. But on the flip side, it's nice to hear it from you too, if you're the end user who's executing that role. So how do you kind of decide when the best time is to dole that out
Sure.
to one level or two levels or three levels below?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about accolades and recognition and giving people credit is that you can spread it however you want to. So in your exact scenario, they both get credits. And those are the two different conversations where with the employee who's out there doing the work, I can talk to them about the great job they did the other day and how fantastic that was, and then I can go to their direct leader and say, hey, FYI, really great work with Chris. You know what I mean? I've noticed recently, I've seen his name float around some more. I had a chance to talk to him earlier. He said he was really appreciative of the feedback, and he thanked me for your support of how you're doing with him. So I think that there's no rule that the credit for this thing can only go to one person. And I think when you're a leader of leaders, you constantly have to fill that bucket with recognition and positivity, and thanking them for that work, and also being open to understand that all of these things are a journey, and that's actually how you should be leading your leaders, and really understanding how they're doing their job is how good are their people moving forward and growing and developing, and how many of their people are continuing to get better, and how more often are you giving their people recognition. I think that's a direct reflection of their leadership.
Yeah, that made me realize something, that it's really important how you verbalize the feedback and the recognition, because you want to make sure the recognition ties in to job responsibilities that are real and assigned to them, and tied into behaviors that you want to see continue or to strengthen. So when you're giving that recognition to your direct report versus when you're giving it to the employee that's below them, it needs to look very different. Because on the one hand, you're congratulating the employee on a job well done with the behaviors on all the customers or clients they've interacted with for the week. But when you're giving the recognition to your direct report, the leader, you're not going to say, "Hey, I've noticed the interactions with between the employees and the customers are fantastic, great job." That's you're missing an opportunity to strengthen that employee's commitment to doing the behaviors that you're actually looking for, which is not worrying about the interaction, it's worrying about the leadership role. So instead, when you give that recognition to the direct report, it's worded in such a way that says, I want to recognize you with how well you're leading the efforts on of this team to make sure that the behaviors are strong with the customer. And what you're reiterating is that you like that they aren't getting involved and doing it themselves. You like that they're delegating and they're teaching and they're role modeling behaviors, and then they're taking a step back and taking on their role as a leader, not trying to do everything for their people.
No, absolutely. And I think a follow-up question that I like to do is number one, give the recognition, but also seek to understand more. So in your example there, it would be very much of hey, Chris, I just, first and foremost, great job with so-and-so. I just gave them the feedback. I saw the other day they had a great week with the client, with the customer, whatever. It was fantastic work there. So as their direct leader, thank you for, helping them and creating that environment for your team to find success. So tell me more of that. What have you done in their development to help them improve in the actions and the behaviors that we've now seen out of them consistently, and allow the leader to then share with you what the strategy was, how they engage with them, what did the follow-up look like, because I'm also looking to make sure that, yes, you get the recognition, but that it's also, it's also the right thing to do because you've actually done the work, and that should be easy for you to explain.
Absolutely perfect. And with that, it's time for this episode's 1 Minute Hack.
The 1 Minute Hack.
So for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down the names of every one of your direct reports with a little space in between to write down a couple of sentences. And those sentences should be about the work that those leaders are doing to either drive the positive culture of your team, drive specific performance results, or drive behaviors that you're trying to improve on amongst your team, and highlighting things that you'll be able to talk to your direct boss about the next time they are there with your team. Now, if you can't come up with anything for those direct leaders, then there's another conversation that needs to happen, and you need to go deeper in talking to them about the work that they're doing and how are they adding value and how can they be recognized for some of that work that's driving the larger organizational's priorities and or results for your team. And then the next time that your direct boss is in there with your team, start the conversation with the work that they're doing and how that's aligned with the priorities of the organization, so that your direct boss has a starting off point to begin recognition for them and to share some of that credit, so that you can take the credit for leadership, but allow them to take the credit for the results.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think when you can speak to every one of your direct reports that way, giving credit away will never feel contrived, because it will always be in the no matter what your direct boss brings up in terms of an element of business, you'll be able to speak to one of your people at least that is doing efforts or hard work on that front and being able to move the business forward that way. So it won't look like you're, finding a stretch to, give recognition when it wasn't really appropriate. You'll be able to, in the moment, be able to speak to one of your people. And that way, no matter what the situation is, you can give away credit every single time you interact with your direct boss.
Yep. And with that, it brings us to the end of another episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.